Legacy. What does that word even mean? I like to think of it, the story we are writing with the people we love, the parts that they get to carry forward into the growing of their own lives, whether or not we're there to enjoy it with them. Welcome to Wondercast, a community collaborative podcast supporting families navigating the complexities of chronic illness. Today, I am joined by a very special colleague and guest, Taryn Schuelke, author of a kid's book about death, grief and bereavement specialist on the pediatric palliative care team at Texas Children's Hospital in Houston, Texas. Today, we talk about the sacred work of building legacy with your own children. This is Taryn.
Hi, I'm Taryn Schuelke. I am a grief and bereavement specialist, and I have a master's degree in thanatology, which just means death, dying, and bereavement, the study of that. I also have a certification in thanatology, and I am a certified child life specialist as well. And I love working with families. I work in palliative care, and so the majority of what we do is speak with people in tough times. It's my passion. It's an honor to do it, and I'm so excited to be here on Wondercast.
I'm excited to have you. We've worked together in the past. I've worked with people that you know in my deep past. You've worked with some of my students. It's kind of like we've had this dance of intertwining our professions through the years together, and that's been so lovely. And I'm so excited you've come back to share your passion for this. And I think that to work with people that are in the care of supporting those in all things death and dying, it comes with passion, because I think the immediate reaction we get from so many people is, ew, I'm so sorry. Why do you want to do that?
Yes, all the time. It makes me nervous to even tell people what I do, because I'm just bracing myself.
I know, but what they are missing out on is just the most beautiful work of getting to support families at just such an important time. Everybody is born and everybody dies. And so nobody says that about a nurse that helps a baby be born. They don't say, ew, gross.
They might, but
I know they might. So why wouldn't we want to support people on their way out as well? So I'm so glad you're here. For our podcast, we are focusing on this concept of legacy. And you hear that word thrown out a lot. You were maybe in a sorority in college. You might have heard the word legacy before. If you, grew up in Plano, Texas, you might have heard the word legacy. There's Legacy Children's Hospital. Legacy is a word that I love to use clinically, but I think that for today's purposes, maybe let's choose to give a definition to it so our listeners know what we are talking about when we refer to legacy.
I think when people hear that word, their immediate thought is, oh, that means what you leave behind when you die. At least in my realm, that's what people think. But it's so much bigger than that, in my opinion, and it's a little abstract. So when I think of legacy, I like to, maybe a big word, generativity comes to mind. And it's what is going to last the generations. So not necessarily, what am I leaving behind right now, but what can last generations? What kind of impact is my life having? And it's not, I guess in that way, really about dying. It's about living. And what is living meaning to me and to all of the people around me, and what might last generations.
If that feels too big and too important, maybe start smaller. Look within the walls of your home. Look at that space and say, if this is my world right here in this one little building, because I think a lot of people would argue that really is our world. If this houses my world, what am I hoping to grow and cultivate in my lifetime here? Be that lifetime be 95 years, 41 years, or far shorter than that. So it's about growing what we are given with the time that we have.
It feels so big. But I think in reality, like you're saying, Julie, it is all the little things that actually last. Yesterday was the 1 year anniversary of my grandfather's passing. And so we didn't really do much for him at the end of life to build a legacy, quote unquote. That wasn't his thing. Just didn't want to go there. But now when I think about him a year later after he's died, it wasn't doing tasks or making things, or it wasn't forced, I guess is what I mean. It was how he made me feel loved and precious, and how he showed up for me, how he loved my mother, how my mother loved him. Just all of these little things that within the walls of your home, exactly like you're saying, that has lasted generations. And now my children look at him that way too.
My mom closed on her home yesterday, but her dad was a military veteran, Pearl Harbor survivor, and has always given her an American flag whenever she has moved anywhere in her life. That has been his gift to her. Her love of the flag and what it stood for has been a legacy that he has imparted on her and in her family. And just flying that flag in her front yard has been something that is a way of honoring her dad and a collective connectivity that she's had to him. And he passed away, a year before I got married. So it's been a good long while, 17. I've been married. So about 18 years ago, he died. But he always bought her an American flag whenever she bought a home or moved anywhere. When she moved into the home she's been in now for, 10 years, that was the first home that she had moved since he had died. There was a flag flying. Someone had left it out there for her. When she arrived, she was like, oh my goodness, who put this here? First, she thought it was from her real estate agent. And she said, no, I didn't. And then she thought it was maybe from the lender. And he was like, no, it wasn't from me. And so then she just assumed it was from the people that left and just left it for her. But she had never told them what that meant to her. She's always said that was kind of her dad's stamp of approval, right? That was his legacy, him saying, like, this is me saying, I like your house, just kind of smiling on you. And that was her way of having that connectivity to him. Well, she's moving and packing a closet yesterday and just thinking about her dad. And she reaches into the back of the closet and pulls out of nowhere a brand new American flag, just completely brand new. And she even said, I don't remember buying this. She knows she did. She had to have. But what a lovely heart hello, right? Like we get those little heart hellos. And that is the legacy that her dad left in her, is what allowed her to be able to see those little heart hellos. That is what legacy does. Legacy allows us to see things that maybe we wouldn't have been able to see in a certain way. You're right. It's not about the tangible item. It's not about the flag. It's about what it allowed her to continue to see throughout the rest of her life and into ours now. Now I will always notice people who have flags.
Makes me think of some of my own as well. And my husband, his father died from esophageal cancer when he was 19. And so I never got to meet him. There are little things that make me even feel connected to him. I never met the man. I married his son, but little things will pop up and I'll be like, oh, John, of course, and we named our son after him. His due date was John's birthday. We didn't know that his due date would be John's birthday, but lo and behold, it was. And it's just little things like that, I don't know, they're like winks.
They're winks. Those are the parts of our job, I feel like, the work in saying goodbye and death and dying, that we get to hold close and we get to help families see and find comfort in. So talk to me a little bit about how legacy is used in the hospital, specifically in the work that you do.
The majority of my work is working with children who are dying and working with their families. Legacy takes on a little bit of a different twist, I guess, because it's about honoring the life lived and ensuring that the impact is present and tangible, and if there's something that connects the families together, that links them with their loved one that's dying. And so we really tried to accentuate that and that can just be simply through storytelling, telling great memories and bringing those memories up as a sense of connection. And like those will be the ones that are lasting, that bring peace and comfort. And then it can be something tangible like a linked object, like a shirt or a blanket, a necklace, a set of prints, or a song, a song that you can listen to when you're feeling like you're missing them. And that will help you feel comforted and know that you're loved. I like to think of it in this 5 senses, the sense of touch. What can I touch that is going to link me to this person's legacy? What can I smell? What scents can I have around me that will make me remember and feel comforted? Sights, food, taste. What food did they love that I can now make and eat and do that in a very special way? So all of the 5 senses, I think, play into legacy and how we feel about that person and how we remember that person and their impact on our lives.
I love the focus on the senses. I think that that's an easy way for families to hold on to that and to not make it such an overwhelming task. I hope that those that are listening don't get lost in the fact that we're talking about pediatric legacy, because I know that feels very sad and I know that that feels very heavy. But the legacy that goes with your life, no matter long or short, is still a very beautiful thing that you can build. For our Wonders and Worries families, so often what many of them are given is the gift of time. Anybody with chronic illness, whether you are a pediatric patient that has an oncology diagnosis that even if they have a very poor prognosis, hopefully will have a fight ahead of them still and that time to build some legacy. Or even if you have a chronic illness and you aren't looking at end of life, you still have this opportunity to build legacy that I feel is very important, because we don't know what our time looks like. You could battle cancer today and be in a car accident tomorrow. And that's why I think there's just so much importance on building legacy in the lives, especially of your children, of your spouse, of your family and friends that are very dear to you, so that they have these tangible items, if that's what you want for them to have to remember you by, or they have these life lessons and these memories that they've shared with you, if that's what's most important to you, to be able to fill that space. So with Taryn, that's what we're here today, is to discuss what are opportunities to build and what are some small ways to build legacy in your everyday life. What are some bigger ways? What are some ways that can build legacy between hospital and home? Because for a lot of our chronic population, I feel like they do sometimes do that back and forth dance, where maybe they have to do treatment, or maybe their treatment involves some sort of transplant or long ongoing stay in the hospital that then separates them from their family, and how to have that connectivity and that legacy and how to keep it going forward. What have you found as ways to be successful in building legacy between families that might be separated?
We've seen a lot of really beautiful legacies built from a distance. Sometimes it's that distance that really allows you to sit and think, what is important to me? And how can I make sure that that's getting across to my child or my spouse or whoever it is that's important in your life? It could be something like making a pillowcase for your child to sleep on at home when you're away at the hospital so that they feel connected to you, or using one of your t-shirts as their pillowcase so they can smell you, making a schedule or a calendar so that they can anticipate a special time with you, or when you're going to be coming home, or when you're going to have that phone call or that FaceTime. Having those touchstones really helps children specifically feel connected. It helps them know what to expect. It helps them to feel like they're still close. And that can be the same for you too. So if you're in the hospital, having your loved one's item with you can help you feel close to them while you're in the hospital. And thinking about when you're away, in that time that you have to really sit and wonder and think about your life and what is important, it can feel really overwhelming. It can feel really hard and scary and sad and all the things at once. It's also very empowering, and it's also an opportunity. And so I think about, what is it that you want to show or tell or do with your loved one, and making plans for that, writing things down, recording your voice if you have one, seeking out hospital staff to help you do those things.
People are always wanting to help. They just don't know how. Legacy can be a beautiful way to have them support you. So if you know that you want to make a t-shirt quilt from this amazing trip that you took with your family, then you can do that. You can say, these are the t-shirts, and I don't have the energy to cut out all these squares that I need to do, but these are the t-shirts that my kids and I together picked out. This is the blue, like the water up in Yellowstone. And this is the green, like the trees that we saw when we were hiking across, Glacier, and we dropped our phone in the water. And this is the yellow that reminded me when we were climbing that cliff and we had to go to the bathroom so bad, but there was no bathroom because we were at the tippy top in Moab and we were just wanting to get to the arches. And you have these funny stories now that are assigned to just a piece of fabric that then you can give to somebody and they can cut and put together, and they're doing the labor and you're doing the emotional labor. And then it comes together and it makes this beautiful piece of legacy so that your children can have the story, or your family can, that you all kind of weave together, which that is the goal of legacy, to bring in not just the people in your little house, but the people that have touched their lives, which are their coaches and their school teachers, the people that you leave behind with them.
I love that. Legacy makes a community, makes those connections stronger.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the ultimate goal, right? Is your life should hopefully help people see the people you love a little clearer. And that is what a great gift legacy can do that for. And it doesn't have to be where you have to write a letter for every child for every birthday for the rest of their life, because what an overwhelming task, right? Why would you right now know what to say to your 2-year-old at 21? Like, that's overwhelming. And I think that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. While it's an incredible goal, that's a lot of pressure. And that probably feels really heavy and sad. And maybe you don't want to take that on. And I just, more than anything, would love for our families to know that there are lots of other ways that they can also continue that legacy without having to prepare for everything ahead like it's their last day.
So true. And that actually, I'm glad you brought it up, because when I think about the legacies in my own life that my mother is leaving, she's still alive and well. She's leaving legacies all the time for me and for my children and my grandparents and everyone around me. When I think about those kind of legacies, the ones that are not forced, the ones that are not planned, those are there. Like there's a comfort in that. When I think about growing my own garden, it makes me think of my mother and my Nana, because they grew a garden. They didn't do that for me to leave a legacy for me. They did that because they loved it, but it's a part of their legacy for me, even if they didn't intend it to be. So I think it's a comfort to know that that's happening as you live naturally, and you can add on to it if you have the energy and the time and the wherewithal. Like if you're able to think through it, you can add to it, but there's legacy naturally happening all around us at all the time.
So basically what you're saying to all of our people listening is that if they are up against a really hard diagnosis and they are thinking, I may not survive this, or, my life might not be as active and lengthy as I'm hoping it could be, that they have already been building legacy with their children without intentionally meaning to, just by being, just by living and doing and walking alongside your children in everyday life.
Absolutely.
So take that pressure off. Know that you've already done stuff. You've already checked a couple. You've done it. So now the things that you do are just going to be extra, which is great. Mm-hmm. That's your extra icing. That's your glitter. That's your fairy dust. Bring it on. But you've already given them basic love and basic attention. And it's funny, the things that kids hone in on as their favorites. We were doing an activity yesterday. I lead a brownie Girl Scout troop with my youngest. We were working on a badge yesterday for our 5 senses. And for our sense of smell, I cut up various items and put it in brown bags. And they had to sniff the brown bags, not knowing what it was. It was a blind sniff. And they had to sniff it and try to guess what it was. And so one of them had a banana mashed up in it. And one of it had coffee beans. One of it had an onion cut up. One had broccoli, like old broccoli that had been sitting out. And a chocolate brownie cupcake, which was delicious smelling. The reactions for some of them, like one of them took a big whiff of the coffee and was like, oh, it smells like my dad. And loved the smell of it. And another one was like, ew, this smells gross. And then the onion, the chopped onion, one took a big sniff and they were like, oh, that smells so good. It smells like cooking in the kitchen with my mom. And then another one was like, that smells horrible. But it's funny the way that our olfactory system and senses just pour into legacy for our kids. Like even in that moment, they have all these memories associated just with the smell of coffee and onions. Like all these things flooded in, like, oh my gosh, this smells like cooking rice in the kitchen with my dad, and he always wants to eat it all before we even get to the table, and just telling funny stories about a smell out of a brown bag. So it's just using what you have to build that legacy too, and just knowing that just by pouring those activities in that you can do with your children, or putting people in place that can do it, and you just being there in the room on a screen or in a recording.
This feeling of regret that sometimes comes along with legacy, and guilt, because that's real. Why didn't I? Why should, I could have, those kind of questions when I had the time, when I had the energy, whatever it is, fill in the blank. And I think that happens to every single person. When you think about legacy, these thoughts come up, and it can be painful. I just wonder if in those moments when, for example, if you regret having done or said something and you don't want that to be your legacy that you leave, what if your legacy became apology, reconciliation, and renewal? There are these moments within legacy that it can bring up hard things, but it's what you do about it. I think that is actually the legacy. So hard things happen to everyone, and now you have an opportunity to shift the narrative.
Agreed. Legacy does not have to be perfect. It's an opportunity. There is no comparative. You get to write that opportunity for whatever you want it to be. So kind of taking it real quick, I'm going to kind of redirect it for a hot second. What does your clinical training tell you about children's desires to build legacy or connectivity with their parent?
Children crave it. They crave connection. It's hardwired into us as children to make connections. It's such a prominent aspect of childhood in general. So when we think about legacy and children, it's such an opportunity. We've been saying that word so many times, but it really is. It's important. It's important to kids. They need something. And so providing open opportunities to discuss that, and not in a clunky way. It doesn't have to be like, no, I want to talk about legacy, but just open opportunities to talk about what is meaningful, what is important, how you are connected as people who love each other, what that's meant to you, how it's meant to you to be a parent, what that's been like for you. Those are the kind of connections that children thrive on. And even if they don't remember it specifically later in their life, it is ingrained in their bodies and in their minds. And it becomes this subconscious legacy, I guess, if we're going to put it in those terms, where they can take that forward into the rest of their life. And then with items, I think items are so important to kids because they're so concrete and tangible. If we can think of some items that you specifically want them to have and that you bestow upon them, it is monumental like that to a child that you are bestowing this upon them. It becomes the most precious object that they will carry for the rest of their life. That can be so helpful for them in their grief later.
Oh, absolutely. I have seen high schoolers, college kids that have been given things early in their childhood from a parent who went through a very difficult illness, and maybe they died, maybe they didn't. And that item has become a symbol of resiliency and strength for them, and that connectivity, and almost like a talisman that they hold so close. It's their good luck charm. I have one kid who's in our Wonders and Worries teen group, and he wears this bracelet. His mom is actually still alive. She has beaten breast cancer now twice, lived to tell about it, but he wears this bracelet that he wore when she was going through treatment the first time because he couldn't go back with her. He was too young. So on her treatment days, he wore a bracelet so he could know that he was with mom, and mom had a matching one. Now he is a big grown man boy. And he's still on game days. He tucks it into his football pads because he says it's his good luck charm because it brought the very best luck ever. That comes to mean so much to our kids, whether or not it was met with having to learn to say goodbye to someone we love, and it's all the precious thing that we have to hold them close, or if it's still having them by our side and still getting to hold them close with this little object. All of it can come to mean so much to kids as they continue to grow.
I think, Julie, what else?
Okay, so the last little thing, we are going to just give you our real quick and skinny, most favorite of favorite ideas. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel and spend time on Pinterest. And we're just going to go through at different ages and say like, oh, you should try this. Or you could try this. Just be thinking. It might get your cogs going, and you might just start thinking like, oh, I like that idea, but I want to change it this way. Taryn, do you want to start? Or do you want me to start?
Oh, you go first.
This is kind of looking at the scope of our population at Wonders and Worries. So we're going to say adults that are ill. Okay, so for little babies, my favorite for little babies, like little profile pictures that you can do where you do the shadow profiles on the wall. I have had lots of little parents with their toddlers where they hold the light up and they can try to capture. You can take a lamp and shine it on your sleeping kid's face and use it to trace on the wall on a piece of paper, like their profile. And then what you can do is you can write either like in a poem with their name, or you can write why you chose their name when they were born, or maybe a little poem or a full story about their birth or a sweet little moment you had with them, so that maybe if they're not around with you when they're older, they'll have this to look back at and know that not only did you have this amazing memory and purposeful reason for having them, you saw their beautiful face, you saw their profile, and you loved it. You adored it so much, you drew it. I think that's a great gift to give little bodies. I think that is
such a good idea.
Yeah, such a great gift. I also love little thumbprints that you can do where you do a thumbprint of your thumbprint and then like on resin, and then you can flip it over and do the little baby thumbprint on the other side and make it into a necklace. And so that as they grow, they can wear that and know that y'all both had thumbprints together that are just on these little chains and necklaces so that they can enjoy it when they're tiny. And then when they're bigger, that can be something that goes on a keychain or follows them for the rest of their life.
I also think about the birth story and how much our culture loves to hear the birth story, and I can only imagine that little ones would want to also know that later on in their life. What was that like for my parent whenever I was born? And how did they feel? What was their favorite part about it? What was hardest about it? What did they notice about me first? Those kind of things. To be able to know from your words, your mouth, your brain, what that was like, it has got to be super special.
If you wanted to encapsulate your voice, there's StoryCorps, there's all kinds of apps that you can use now to solidify you telling that story. And it can be saved in the cloud or on a flash drive. It can be implanted into a stuffed animal or into a book, into a picture. There's lots of different ways that you can have that saved. I love that. That's a great idea too. Okay, early elementary. They're still really concrete thinkers. So I agree with Taryn from before. I love the ideas of doing legacy activities that involve cultivating like gardens. Gardens are huge because gardens change all the time. They can check on them every day and all season. They produce flowers and vegetables, their life cycles. It helps them understand life and death. Sometimes the garden's not going to grow something or plant's going to die. And it helps them understand that and process that a little bit better too. There can be a lot that gets worked through all of that as well.
I think about early school age and you're learning how to write and draw things and tell stories yourself. So give your child prompts of draw this picture, draw this scene, write this kind of a story. What would you do if? And then the kid can create that out of your own prompt. And it's almost like a, look, Mom, I made this for you picture, or I wrote this story. I thought you would love it. And that can be really meaningful for them.
Absolutely. I had one little boy when he was younger. He and his dad were really into Legos. And Lego is an amazing legacy builder in itself, but they took on building some of the big things. Like they started small with like the AT-AT walkers and grew it to be like eventually they did the Death Star, like some of the bigger ones, Hogwarts Castle. Like when they did that, they had that as a chance to share that legacy, but also have it up on display. Well, then when that boy was going into high school, his dad was in a horrible car accident and ended up dying from a brain injury. Totally unknown. Nobody saw that could happen. It could happen to any of us. And then that was when the pandemic hit and COVID hit, and he ended up getting COVID and being stuck at home, just isolated in his grief. And because he had COVID, he couldn't leave his room, and he was just sitting in his room staring at all of these things he built with his dad. And he got mad and he broke one of them. And with that came like that feeling of intense loss, almost like grieving that loss all over again. And what he ended up doing is taking them all apart and rebuilding them all. When I was talking to him during that time, I asked him, like, are you sad that you're rebuilding him? And he said, no, it's almost like I'm hanging out with my dad while I'm on isolation in my room. I'm getting to hang out with him. And I feel like he's here too. That was something they shared together. And to do it again and then just be him, he felt like he was with his dad. That was his chance to share that legacy with him. And what started out as something that was big feelings became a moment of sharing, getting to go back and revisit. So even play is a great way to build legacy in this age group of kids. Just have that play. Yeah, make space for play, games. Upper elementary. These are kids that are like 5th and 6th graders going towards middle school, moving a little bit more towards abstract thinking, very still into rule-based play.
I think of cooking.
Sewing.
Creating.
These are your kids that you can make oils with and soap, make scrubs, teach them how to make candles. You have a recipe that is just your most favorite, or you love to make origami napkins. This is the age. Like, impart that on them, and every Thanksgiving table for the rest of their lives will look beautiful because you have taught them your ways.
For sure. And they love feeling older than they actually are. And so doing things with them or talking to them about things that may be a little bit older, it makes them feel special. And those are like core memories. I remember my mom let me finally cut that vegetable with that really sharp knife that she always used. And she like helped me do it. Core memories there, if you're doing that.
In terms of middle school kids, so these are our 6th, 7th, and 8th, but really closer to 7th and 8th, are kids that are maybe feeling kind of strange in their bodies and definitely feeling all the hormones, a little bit spicy and saucy.
Oh gosh. Yeah, that's a rough time. I think, what if you found some old pictures of you when you were their same age and kind of wrote out some memories of, I remember when this was hard and this is what I learned, and maybe some, reassurances for hard days.
I think journaling is a great thing for this age group too, that back and forth journaling. If you have that opportunity and you have that ability still to be able to set up some sort of communication that doesn't involve talking. Sometimes talking feels too heavy. Maybe it's a shared playlist, or you make a playlist and you say, these are songs that help me feel stronger, or these are songs that remind me of you, and give them that playlist and share it with them so that they can listen to it on their own time in their own way, that then they can come back and add to, even if you're no longer around. Or they might, as they're older, think about you or think about how you saw them. They can go back and listen to that song that mom said reminded her so much of me. And it's a way for them to feel connected to you at another time in their development where maybe they are a little bit less opinionated and saucy and spicy. Because for this age group of kids, that is one thing that we do hear on the other side of it, is after their parents are gone and they have worked through some of the stage of development and they get a little older, they say, I wish I hadn't yelled so much at my mom or said some of the unkind things I said. And we just remind them that, you know what, when we have a lot of hormones going through our bodies, we all say things that we don't mean, and that deep down, our parents know that we love them. Having songs and music to go back to, especially ones that have messages of love, helps these kids to be like, oh, listen, they knew it. They knew it all along. I can hear it in the song. I can read it in this poem that they left for me. So there's lots of different things that you can do with that age group.
Think about holidays too that are special to your family. And that age group really loves finding ways to incorporate their loved one into that holiday still. And so I wonder about coming up with ideas for that time, those special times as a family together, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's too heavy, leaving that as kind of some instructions can empower them later on.
That person would be your person to be your follow-through kid, because they will follow through. They will honor it. They're the ones who you give the special directions to and say, listen, if I'm ever not here, this is what I want to see happen. And those middle schoolers, they may be saucy and spicy, but they will see it done. They will continue to grow, and they'll be like, we will make it happen. And they are going to be around long enough at home. They're not launching to college. They're not moving out. They will be around long enough to continue to grow, to make it happen. They're your ones. Target them. So moving into high school, so we have this budding independence, these egocentric, nothing can happen to me, I am my own world group of individuals. I'm laughing because I have two in there right now, and they are no fun at all. But then they are also the most fun. So, I mean, it's just like every day, it's different. Some of my favorite things for this age group, I would say a lot of it is sharing in their interests, and it's hard, but really trying to connect with them where they are. When I see these parents that are, going through chemo and they are bald and exhausted and tired, and they are making TikToks with their teens, and they are just like owning it, or they're like, their Be Real is like laying on the couch with a barf bucket. I mean, I have one dad who like every single day would text his teenager the different colors of his pee out of his catheter. He's like, oh, we are gold and slightly amber this morning. And that was their like check-in, was the color of his pee. But that was their opportunity really to say like, hey, I'm alive. I'm okay. I'm here. How are you? But instead of saying that, because teens don't want to say that sometimes, it was, my pee today is this color. But the real reason is I'm checking in on you. And it's meeting them where they're at and finding them where they are. Maybe making a collaborative playlist together. Like, let's put some of my music and your music together and make a rage playlist. Let's make a hype playlist. Let's make a running playlist. Like, what do we have? So
I love that too. Yeah. A collaborative anything.
Anything collaborative. Yes.
TikToks, whatever comes up that they're interested in. Gaming, like maybe making an avatar in a game that's y'all can do it together. I mentioned earlier that my husband's father died when he was 19. Well, he was going through chemo when he was in high school. And one of the biggest things that stuck with him is that his dad would wear his chemo pack to his baseball games and show up whenever he had enough energy. He wasn't as rowdy in the stands as he used to be. He wasn't yelling at the refs like he used to, but he was present. And so I think finding a way to be present as best as you can for what your child is interested in, your teenager is interested in, that will make such a huge impression to the point where they're going to grow up and want to be the little league coach and go to every single game and not miss a single game, because my dad didn't. So finding those interests, like you're saying, and doing that together. I also think about milestones here at this stage, because there's a lot of big milestones coming up for teens, graduations and college and jobs and trades and whatever it is your child is looking ahead to, and them wanting you to be there for that moment. And so finding a way to be there in those moments, even if you can't be, writing a note for that moment or leaving a special something to wear during that moment, will help them feel more connected when those things come up.
I agree. And then for our young adults, it's helping them know that it's okay to not know their plan, right? It's validating. It's talking to them like a grown-up and helping them know that you maybe didn't have it together as a 20-year-old or as a 19-year-old. It's taking that burden off of them to have to be grown up right now. Sometimes the best gift of legacy you can give your young adult children is telling them that it's okay to not know everything. And when you're gone, they don't have to know everything. They don't have to be mom. They don't have to be grandma. They just get to be brother or sister or cousin. They don't have to fill in the other roles. They just get to be them still. And having that permission can sometimes be the very best legacy, I think, for our oldest children, because I think they want to try to make up for the fact that the people below them aren't getting what they got. And it's nice to have that permission to know that that's not your role. You don't have to do that. I could go on for hours, but I can't, because I know you have to work with other families. Is there anything that you would like to share with our families? Any last parting words?
I guess my takeaway would be that even though legacy feels like this huge nebulous thing, and it is, in reality, it is the little moments and the little things that you do just in this minute, in the next hour, the things you say, and the way you make people feel.
Thank you so much for tuning into our podcast today. Please continue to check back as our content is ever evolving. For any recommendations or topics you would like to see covered, please feel free to send an email to podcast@wondersandworries.org.